Good day, good people of the YouTubes. Welcome to the channel, welcome back. So good to have you all here. We've already got a bunch of people in the chat, which is so good to see. Welcome, so good to have you here. I'm in a new space now. I've moved house. I'm in a new office space here, so I'm trying to figure out how to make this all look half decent and all, but you know, we'll get there slowly. Yeah, welcome. Let me know where you're coming in from. Let me know if you can hear me and all. Hopefully everything's all looking and sounding okay. Got a different mic setup at the moment. Got a bit of a boom mic thing happening here, so we'll see if that's okay. I'll probably go look at a different mic down the track anyway. But we are here today to talk about a TikTok event that we did actually quite a few months ago now. It was a very interesting one. The event was for Red Bull Dancing. It was the Australian grand final for their Dance Your Style event. So the client was Red Bull, but also TikTok as well. So they were both partnered together to make this event work. So it was a very interesting one. We've got some people coming in from the US. Welcome one. Rick, good to have you all here. Lots of buffering. I hope that's not for everyone. Looks and sounds good. Good to see. Hello, Jonathan from the UK. Good to have you here. Hopefully it's not too late over there for you all. And we've got Patrick from Norway. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is not too early for me as what it normally be. It's 7 a.m. at the moment. I apologize. I'm actually fighting COVID at the moment, so it's been an interesting one. But I've fought through. We will hopefully be able to get through this stream and not lose my voice and not survive the rest of the thing. Welcome, John. Good to have you here as well. But so let's talk about the event. So here was my brief that I got from my client, Screencraft. Shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for having me on board to be able to make this event for you guys. So the brief was, apologies, I'm on the verge of coughing the whole time, so I'll keep going as much as I can. So firstly, had to be vertical. Being TikTok, obviously TikTok is vertical, so that was going to be a thing from the beginning. So we had to decide whether we're going to shoot sideways vertical or we're actually going to crop in a HD or 4K window. So yeah. My apologies. Good thing I got that cough button. That's quite handy. So we had to shoot in vertical. We had a hosting position on a LED screen, a large curved LED screen, which is typically used for virtual production and such. So we had to shoot a hosting position with 3 cameras, 2 sticks, and 1 Steadicam. The fun part was we had 16 contestants coming in all at the same time, and we needed to have ISO video and ISO audio all in vertical for each person. So that was a very interesting challenge, as we'll talk about very soon. We needed instant replay for 2 teams. So basically the way it worked was it was a rounds kind of scenario. So we had 16 players, and then they would verse 2 people, and they'll the winner moved to the next heats, and then into the finals. So we had a red team and a blue team, being Red Bull, red and blue. So we had those 2 going on for that. We had a live DJ on the stage as well, who was providing the music for the contestants. And the one fun part was the client requested that we shoot everything on all the contestants were all coming in on phones. So that was going to be very interesting. My apologies. Yes, so we had to go on phones, which was proving to be a lot of fun. So we did a lot of pre-production for this. In fact, this entire job was basically based around pre-production. And a lot of pre-production. So when we were looking into how we're going to bring in all these contributors, had a few ideas pop into mind. Because we had to have 16 people coming in at the same time. They had to be able to get an ISO feed to us, so ISO audio and video. We had to be able to send them a program feedback, mix minus themselves, and they had to be able to see and hear the music so that they can dance to it. and also see the program so that when they're on, they can hear the hosts as well of what's happening. So soon we'll actually show a bit of a video from the event, as well as some behind the scenes of the install and how we did all that as well. So it was a very interesting one. So we went through, a couple of different options. We had, we looked at Teams with the built-in NDI outputs. That was proving a little bit interesting. We had looked at Zoom as well, and we even looked at Video Ninja. But overall, we ended up using Zoom and Zoom Rooms. That was what we ended up using to actually bring in all these guests. Because Zoom Rooms gives you the opportunity to have, use NDI out to a Zoom room and give you ISO audio and video from each person. So we ended up having a 6 Zoom rooms to run 16 people, because Zoom rooms can run up to 3 people each. And so we had, 6 Zoom rooms going to 4 OBS machines. And each of those OBS machines had a Decklink Duo in there, which had 4 outputs to the switcher, which will actually be handy soon, showing there's actually a few other reasons for using OBS as well, because that gave us the ability to do a few fun things like when people were out, or if they had a technical problem, we actually had a full OBS instance open so that we could put up a holding slide or do anything like that. But we also were able to, So when they got out, we actually turned their picture to black and white. Because another thing they wanted to do was actually see a 16-way pip. And as you know, a super source does not do 16 ways. So that was a very interesting one to try and sort out. But yeah, so I've talked a little bit so far. Let's have a look at some of how it looks, because I'm sure you're curious to see, what we did and how we did it. So let's cut to the montage and find out. So there we have it. That was a bit of the behind the scenes of the control room and set setup, as well as some actual footage from TikTok from the actual event itself. So what do you think? Did it work? Did it look okay? Yeah, as you could see, it was a rather large production, rather large crew as well. A lot's going on, but, you know, we got there in the end. So, let's have a look in the chat, see who's here. Lovely gradients. Yes, thanks, John, for fixing up a little bit of, adding a little bit of CSS to your H2R graphics so I can get a bit of, so you can actually see a bit of gradient in there so you can see behind the chat itself, which is a bit fun. Thanks for your support on that too. Hello from Germany. Welcome, welcome. Sportflow is asking, how was the Ursa Broadcast G2? If you haven't seen that video, actually, we just did a review on the Ursa Broadcast G2. Quite a long one as well, so if you're interested, please go check that out. To be honest, I haven't actually had much chance to play with it other than what I did in the video. I'm really sorry. My throat is particularly tickly at the moment. So this, I did take it to a client to compare it against some of their Sonys. They got some Sony broadcast cams at the moment they've been using for the last couple of years. So yeah, we had a little look against that. We didn't really have a huge chance to adjust lighting and things to be looking identical or and that kind of thing. But it was interesting. Like the skin tones were looking pretty good. But the yeah, there was a few things that like for example, there was a big LED screen behind their set, and on the Sonys it was looking similar between in the eye on camera and what the content was coming in, but it was looking a bit different on the broadcast. So anyway, I've still got a lot to play around with and test it out, but you know, overall it's still looking great. I know for me personally, I'm probably going to use it a bunch, especially since I do a lot of stuff with the Ursa Mini Pros. But yeah, overall it's looking pretty good so far. Patrick's asking, what was that with the Mac Minis and the iPhones? So sorry. So that was what the Zoom Room was happening there. So we had 6 Mac Minis, which was running Zoom Rooms on them. And the way to run Zoom Rooms is you need a device, like an iOS device or Android device, with the Zoom Rooms app to actually control it. So typically Zoom Rooms is used as like a conference room, for example. So you might have a plasma on the wall with a Zoom Room set up so that you walk in with your device and go, cool, I want to join this call on Zoom. And so that's how you actually control it on the iPhone itself. So we've got 6 iPod Touches just to be able to basically assign those 3 contestants to each of those Zoom Rooms. That's what that was. So once that was set up, that we didn't touch that. That was basically sending the Zoom feed from Zoom to OBS, which we'll chat about a bit later. Simon's asking, how did you mix portrait video feeds on the Blackmagic Video Switcher? So we did the highly complicated process of rotating everything physically. So everything was still a 69th thing. Like there's no vertical mode in the switcher itself. We basically decided that the right was the bottom of the frame. So everything was rotated that way around. So anything on the right was on the bottom. So all our cameras were rotated that way, all of our screens were rotated that way. And then on the output, so we were uploading to TikTok on OBS. So we had our OBS instance open, and that was running in vertically, and we just rotated the picture coming in. So literally everything was still in 16:9, it's just everything was sideways. But we'll go have a look at that a little bit later on as well. There's so much stuff in this, it's crazy. I like the look of the Decklink Duo, but I tend not to work in SDI. Is there any equivalents that you'll be able to use with 4 HDMI outputs? I had this question literally like 2 days ago. I don't know if there is, which is a little bit annoying, especially with things like the ATEM Mini. But saying that the converters to go from SDI to HDMI are relatively inexpensive. But yeah, there is still another thing in the chain to be able to do that. So I don't know of any that will do more than one, like the Decklink 4K will do a HDMI out, but then you have to have a lot of those cards to actually be able to get that happening. How did I manage quoting for a job like this? Can't even imagine how you begin to work out costs for everything. Look, great question. It was a interesting one. So my client Screencraft had a lot of the equipment already. So the Constellation was theirs. That's, by the way, we're using Constellation to actually cut on. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a bit. So I just want to answer these questions, but I'll get back to we'll have a look at the spec sheet soon and show how we actually did a lot of this. So they had a lot of the equipment already. So things like switcher, comms, monitoring, cameras, audio console was all theirs already. So a lot of that stuff was already there. It was, a decently priced gig. I didn't get the final number, but it was, it was decent to say the least, especially with a lot of crew there as well. But yeah, let's have a look at the patch list. So this is what we ended up using patch sheet wise. I'll go full screen so you can see all this. So here we have our video patch sheet. So we use the Constellation, so 40 inputs and 24 outputs. We use basically all the inputs bar 2, and we use all the outputs bar 1. So it was a bit of a busy one. So we originally had 4 cameras, we ended up only using 3, so that's why there's a gap there. So 3 cameras, and then we had all the Zoom rooms coming in. So we had OBS A, which had 1 to 4, B 1 to 4, C 1 to 4, D 1 to 4. So that's now 16 Zoom guests. Now we were using the D embed on the Constellation, which was amazing. So you can see the channels here on the side of how we're getting audio out of the Constellation. So MADI output, amazing, absolutely love it. We had a lot of HyperDecks for all those overlays and BT playbacks and such, as you saw. So we had an overlay one, which we had for things like the clock, which you may have seen. And we had another one for stings. So we had a bunch of different stings, like it would say blue start. And then I used Companion to make all these different macros to be able to go, all right, cool. So blue is going to start. It's going to bring out full screen. It's going to be a blue full screen in the front, and we're going to have a pip of red in the corner so that you can see them reacting and watching as that's happening. So that is basically what we did there. There's a lot of Companion stuff, but I'll show you how we actually went around doing each red and blue team as well, because that was a bit fun. We had 2 channels of EVS. We had 4 channels recording and 2 outputs from EVS. So we had red team going in, we had blue team going in, we had program going in. I think it was 3 channels of recording on EVS. But we had Alpha and Bravo coming from EVS with 4 channels of audio. I'll explain that a bit later in terms of how we did that. So we had a PIP gallery. So we had an E2, Barco E2, I think it's Barco, E2 running the 16-way PIP. So that was giving us the 16-way PIP, which is really main way we could do that. Then we had the red team and blue team coming in via the router. So it's a bit of a sneak peek there of how we were doing that. That one actually changed as well. But yeah, so we had graphics operator as well, who was doing like lower thirds and bits and pieces. So we're introducing each person. D3, which was giving us, so D3 was running the LED screen, as well as giving us some pips with different animations and bits and pieces. What you may have noticed was the multi-view, there's quite a few pips on the multi-view itself. So what we ended up doing was sending 3 multi-views out from the Constellation back into itself, and then using a super source to make us a 4x4 multi-view with, what do you call it? Yeah, 4x4 multi-view with, so program, 16-way of Zoom, and then all the other sources like cameras and playbacks and bits and pieces. So that's how we were getting that big multi-view with all these different things, because it would have been okay, but it would have been absolutely nuts to try and have all these different monitors all around for everyone to see as well. So we had mostly all the same outputs for it. So each multi-view was 4K, and we could all see all the inputs and outputs that we wanted to see on the 3 different monitors around. So that is how we did that. We use a bunch of all the media players. So we had the bug in the corner, which is little videos going. We had the overlays for the pips and stuff in the thing, as well as the 16-way. We use all the MEs. We had ME1 being program, ME2 being vote now. So we had the look for vote now, which was a side-by-side thing. Actually, I'll pull up the... So this is what we were... Hang on, let me pull that across. This is the brief we got from our client and how we had to make this look. So yeah, we had to have the 16-way pip, which we had from the E2 server. We had our head-to-head battle. So, this is the introduction. So this is introing the 2 teams. So we had the lower thirds being placed on top of these. So this was all on ME2, I believe. So we had that preset. And we also had this corner look as well. So we had blue or red in the thing. And then we had the opposing team in the corner watching. And then we just adjusted the color of the border to show what team they were on. Then we had a full screen, which we didn't actually use. It was just purely the pips. We had the LED screen look, which had the pips or both teams, as well as like a bit of animation on the side. Yeah, the 2 side looks as well. And yeah, this is like a bit of a look with the host in front with the people on screen. So that was the briefing we got from the client on how they wanted to look. But yeah, again, this is all in pre-production. So, which, yeah, wouldn't have been able to be done otherwise. In terms of outputs, we had our camera returns for CCU, program dirty, preview, CCU for iris and such. So what we ended up doing was we had 2 feeds going out. We had the feed going out through an aux for the red team and blue team. Actually, I think we ended up just scrapping that and just using the router. Anyway, we had a 40x40 router there, which gave us, so all of our video feeds from Zoom went into the router, and we split it into two places basically. So the 16 Zoom feeds went to the switcher for one way. It went to the E2 server, E2 or S3 server, which gave us the 16-way pip. And also we had a cut out from the router, which went to the switcher. It went to audio, went to EVS, and it went to the LED screen server as well. So what we ended up doing was on a Stream Deck, I had, which perfectly on an XL Stream Deck, we had red team and blue team. So 1 to 16 and 1 to 16. So the AD on that was able to go, cool, red team is number 4 and blue team is number 16. So they had the run sheet there and they were just basically putting people into those boxes. So what that ended up doing was that, so say red team was 1 and blue team was 2. So 1 was now being sent out a router patch going to the switcher. So now that meant that EVS was getting a record from that person. So they had their ISO audio, and they had ISO audio from the blue team as well. So that's how we were getting the audio to EVS and also to the audio mixer as well. So audio mixer had all the 16 channels from the MADI embeds on the switcher, as well as the red and blue team, so they can pull up red team or blue team as of mixing on the fly. So it's a bit all over the place, but it actually worked really well. So it meant that we weren't able to cut the red team and blue team live, but with so many stings, you were able to actually just cut them in stings, and it was just a little bit of a glitch in the router change. But yeah, so the router was an absolute lifesaver in terms of how we were able to do that. And then we had a bunch of fallback monitors, had like what went to Tik Tok, green room monitors, blah, blah, Zoom, we're getting just a program feed. We had a Zoom multi-view, so the Zoom operator was able to see all the 16 feeds, make sure that they can see and hear everything that they want. Super helpful having the audio bars on the multi-view as well, so they can do mic checks with everyone, go, hey, can we hear you? Great, cool. Because once they were out on Zoom, then we knew it was working, and everything else kind of worked in the system. We had, clean record, data record, tech monitor, and lighting preview as well. We're in 2997 for our base, and so this is what we use for any video playbacks. So that is the video side. So computer-wise, we had the 6 Mac Minis for our Zoom rooms. We had the Zoom app. So we had 2 outputs for Zoom. Because we weren't, we were requested to have everything be in vertical and on phones, but I think 1 or 2 people actually ended up being on a laptop with the laptop rotated on the side. So we had to send out 2 program feeds, one being vertical and one being horizontal. So depending on if you're using a laptop or a phone, because a phone will actually rotate it vertical because it does have a vertical mode in Zoom. But a laptop doesn't know which way it's facing, so we had to get them to pin whichever one was looking vertical for them. So both were the same in terms of video and output. They were just 2 different things. We had one of them being audio, and both were the same video feed. They just had different looks to them. Then we had our 4 OBS machines, Companion for Raspberry Pi, had iPod Touches, and then we had a TikTok live stream. There was no backup stream because TikTok does not do backups, and that made me very upset. It didn't go down or anything, but it was just more of a scary case of, I really hope nothing happens. So, and then we had audio PC for control. But router patch wise, we had as we said, we had a 16 Zoom in and outs. So 16 outputs went to the ATEM and 16 went to the E2, as well as a red and blue feed for each of them. So basically the, what's it called? So the E2 had, all of them had that going out, and on the Stream Deck we had all the different buttons. So that was just basically controlling the router in terms of what went through those outputs. We have Mr. Michael Fardell in the house. Michael is my client from Screencraft, who was the lead director and producer on this show. So thank you for joining. Yes, it is far too early for this stuff. I apologize, but unfortunately, Australia is in the worst possible time zone for any of this kind of stuff. So look, it's not 4 a.m., so that's the thing. So that was the video patch. Audio patch was... Audio got very interesting. So we had, obviously, all the audio inputs coming in from Maddie. We had a red team and blue team. We had all our VTs coming in via Maddie as well. EVS was coming in via Maddie. Now, for Maddie, we had multiple audio channels. We had 4 channels coming in from Maddie on the program feed. So what that meant we were able to do was that when we're doing an instant replay, we were able to get 4 channels of audio. So we had the red team audio, the blue team audio, the host audio, and the music audio. So that meant when we were doing a replay, the audio operator was able to pull up all those feeds and mix them live as the replay was happening out, which was a bit of a trip to actually get patched in. But when we got it patched in, it was really great, because when we were able to do a replay of a reaction or someone dancing, you were able to hear them doing that, also hear the hosts responding to as they were doing things live. It also meant that in post, because we grabbed all the files from the EVS in post for a post edit, they were able to actually grab all those feeds and mix in audio as they so please. So that was a very fun way of doing that. But without the Matty D embed, this would have been an absolute nightmare, because there's just so many D embeds happening from SDI. But so we had DJ coming in analog, Disguise. Can't remember what that was for. I think we had some stings on Disguise, so that audio was coming in to the console. Now, our outputs was where things got super fun. So we had to have a whole bunch of different delays going on. We obviously had the delay from the on stage. So we had had to do the mic sync between the mics on stage with the hosts and program going on the output. And we also had to sync up Zoom in case they were out at all. But the other fun thing was trying to sync up a DJ playing in the studio and people on Zoom dancing who were delayed inherently just by receiving the video and then coming back out to the world. So we had to delay what the world were hearing to be in sync with what came back from Zoom. So Zoom was, what's the word? Sorry, mental blank. Yeah. So yeah, we were getting around 2 to 4 seconds worth of delay. Unfortunately, the delay was drifting a little bit between each thing, so we weren't able to get it perfect, but we ended up finding a sweet spot, maybe around 3 seconds of return trip delay. So what that meant was that the hosts in the room were all listening to the music in real time according to the DJ, because obviously you don't want to give DJ a mix of 3 seconds delay. But the people on Zoom were all listening to the music as quickly as we could get it to them, because obviously we want to try and get it to them quickly so that we're getting things in time. But we had to delay the audio playback on the stream so that people, delay the audio on the stream so that people watching the dance was remotely in sync with what they were dancing. Because otherwise, if we played it in sync on the day, they would be coming in dancing super behind. So that's how we got around the audio sync, basically. I think we had to use like 3 different channels to try and get that delay up to like 3 seconds, which was a bit crazy. But yeah, so delays were definitely something that had to be considered. And we knew this from the beginning. We're like, we had to get this right because this is going to be all over the place otherwise. So what do we have in terms of outputs? We had our, so we had our stereo program, Zoom, mix minus, hosts, mix and minus themselves as well. And we had IFBs going to them as well. So the director was able to talk discreetly to them in the ear. And then we had our audio outputs, which was going to each of those different places. See, Patrick's asking to touch a bit more on the EBS and also the graphics package. Sure. So at the end of each round, we had, so basically, red team would dance, blue team would dance, and then I think they did 2 rounds of each. And then at the end of that, it would become a vote now part. So during the part where we said vote now, EBS would play back a portion of their dance at that moment. So when we did a vote now, it cut to EBS, Alpha and Bravo on both of those things. So they could, while they're voting, they could see a bit of a highlight of their dance. So that was the most basic part of it. Also meant there was like 4 highlights as well. So we had a highlight of everyone's dance at the end of the show. So we could see everyone doing that. The EBS operator was absolutely smashed that day. He was working extremely hard to try and make everything work. But yeah, basically the idea was that during a vote now, they were able to see what was going on there. Actually, what I can do as well is I can show you that in the video. So yeah, the DJ would hit the button. You wouldn't actually hear the audio for 3 seconds because of the delay. So these are our 2 video playbacks happening there. As you can see, the 3, 2, 1, and then the sting happening on top, which is a separate VT going on. And then we had our person in the corner of the person watching, so we could see them react. And then, so this is red team starting there. And then, the clock will be at the top. And then this is where the graphics package came in. So the graphics were doing the name, also showing which song it was. I can't remember what they were using. I think it was, what's it called? Ross Expression, I think, maybe, to do their graphics. So they were just doing all the graphics sideways. But yeah, it just meant that the graphics were able to be put in live over top with animations and bits and pieces so that we know who was going on. And then, yeah, so this is like the end of a dance. We just fade back to the host who saw the people on the screen. Then we had a vote now time. So this is a replay, as you can see at the top. It's probably not the best example because the guy on the left is not dancing, but basically what we were seeing normally was both teams dancing at that point. And yeah, so this is both EBS Alpha and Bravo coming in on these two channels. And then we'll have Blue would win, they would have their reaction, they walk off camera as classic. And then, so this is another point where we had highlights. Here's the highlights so far, blah, blah, blah. So that is all the pieces of the show. But yeah, obviously it was a rather complicated thing. And absolutely, this would not have been possible without Companion, especially on ATEM. This was a huge undertaking because we had Companion buttons which were firing VTs, which were putting on and off keys. I think the keys were always on. But anyway, there was a lot going on. We were swapping router patches and stuff. But anyway, Companion was an absolute lifesaver for this show. Agreed. But in terms of audio patch, I think that's it. If anyone has any more questions in terms of patching and stuff, please chuck them in the chat. But that is basically how we were able to do that and fill up the Constellation again. It's amazing how you can fill up 40 channels so quickly and easily. I mean, obviously it is a big event, but it is pretty easy to do. So yeah, it was a fun one. We had a lot of fun with that. Now, what else did we have to do? Yeah, if you have any questions, please chuck them in the chat and I will answer them as much as I can. But I think it's yes, sorry, I didn't mention that. So the voting was done through TikTok. So basically, it was a case of put in different color, like blue or red emojis. That was basically the voting process. So they would say, blue hearts, red hearts, whatever for that. So then they had people in the corner who were counting the votes coming in. Okay, oh, there's 100 red, 100 blue, or whatever. And then they made the call and then just told the hosts, and it wasn't a very particularly hard out on the voting. You can see in the video there so you can see a bunch of like color emojis. So vote now, you would start seeing blue, blue, red, red, blah, 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 in the bottom in the chat coming in. So that's basically how they were doing the voting side of things, which was a fun one. So what did I learn? Vertical's kind of a pain in the ass. That was obviously a very big part of it. Bringing in guests on phones was also a lot of fun because we had a lot of fun trying to figure out how we're going to do how we're going to bring in their phones vertically, because phones are not all the same in terms of how they actually output their videos. Sometimes if like there's a screen lock on, it's not actually going to rotate. It's coming in vertically, which is a weird resolution for video, and we were trying to figure out all that. So it was because originally I was pushing really hard to let's just get everyone to use laptops and put the laptops on the side, because we're just guaranteed that all their videos are going to be the right way around. But look, in the end, the phone was probably better because because it gave us the opportunity to, the cameras on phones are typically better these days. Like the laptop cameras are getting better, but they're still not great. So the cameras were better, but then we had the issues of the contestants not being able to hear the music so well because they're just coming through the little audio speakers. And I had a bunch of problems before with people using Bluetooth devices, but if they bump them or something, the call disconnecting or hanging up in bits and pieces. So we basically banned all wireless outputs because we're like, we just don't want you to drop out. And no one did, which was lucky. But and speaking of, so what role did OBS play in this whole picture? So it played a few roles. We had the 4 OBS instances running the Zoom rooms, the outputs from the Zoom rooms. So we had Zoom rooms running NDI into OBS. So we had 4 OBS instances which were able to, what's it called? 4 OBS instances which we ran into 4 computers, and each computer had 4 OBSs open. So we basically set it up. So let's actually pull up a picture so it makes it a bit easier to see. Where is she? Here we go. So this is our... Sorry about that. So this is how we had Zoom. So we had 4 OBSs running on each Zoom. By the way, quick tip, having this output so that we can check all the patching and stuff on the screen was an absolute lifesaver. Because we're able to make a color background and text in patch-in time so that we were able to make sure that we had patching through everything, which is awesome. So basically each of these outputs, so Zoom 1 had a NDI feed coming in from one of the Mac Minis. And then on the Decklink output for that particular instance, we went to port 1, port 2, port 3, port 4. So that's how we ended up doing that. And then we had 2 different scenes happening on these on the day. We had the video feed coming in from NDI. Then we had a duplicate scene with the NDI coming in, and we took out the color. So what ended up happening was when we were getting down the events, do I have a 16? So you can't really, it's hard to see there, but you can see that some of the contestants there are grayed out. So what we're basically doing is every time on the 16 way, you could see who was still active because they were in color and who were out, who were in black and white. So that was actually a really fun way to use OBS because it meant that we were able to still see them, but be able to do that as well. So that was a bit fun. So OBS was doing that, and then we had also OBS going to TikTok itself. So OBS can run in vertical mode, so we made it 9:16. And then the video feed coming in, we just literally just rotated it and then put it up to TikTok. Speaking of, we had one thing we found out very quickly was the TikTok app was doing was scaling differently on the phone depending on. So we found that, like on an iPhone, for example, it was chopping off the left and right because most phones are actually not 16:9, they're more like 17 or something by 9. So we lost a bit of the left and right video feeds. So if we actually look on the video outputs, this is a screen recording from an iPhone. You can see there's a bit of a black bar on top and bottom. So what we ended up having to do was in OBS, we actually just shrunk down the program output. So that majority of phones that we were using on the day were showing at least all the sides because we didn't want to cut off the graphics, we didn't want to cut off the logos and bits and pieces. So quick tip, if you're using TikTok, add a lot more safe zones than you realize. Because obviously you also got the safe zones of this is always there, this is always there, the chat stuff. So there's actually not a lot of window you can actually use on TikTok, which is annoying, but that is one thing so that's how we used OBS, which was a bit fun. Did we do a rehearsal with the participants? Yes, we did. So the day before, we did a check with them all. So we checked their picture coming in, checked their audio, checked their link, make sure that we're all happy. So we basically staggered that over an hour or two. So we gave them all a 15-minute time slot. So we're just able to check them all and have time to make adjustments if we needed to. So that was crucial because it was just, otherwise it's just not going to happen on the day. So yeah, did tech rehearsals, but then also on the day, about an hour before, I believe, we had them all on, and we actually just did a basic run through. We're like, cool, you and you're dancing, blah blah blah. So we just ran them through the show, so they got a feel of how it was actually going to look on the day. So yeah, absolutely crucial in terms of that. And Michael's saying that we had a contestant Zoom producer who was able to chat with them via IFB sent on the comms. So yes, we had someone who was in charge of Zoom, and they were able to chat on their comms to the Zoom room, like to the Zoom call, who was able to chat with them all. So they were able to chat with them beforehand and say, hey, blah, 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 welcome, good to have you here, and such. I think we may have actually had a green room to bring them in initially, or was it just the same one? I can't remember. But anyway, when we're having the tech check, they were chatting with them on comms, which was super handy. So yeah, that was basically how we did that, which was good fun. So what else did we learn? Audio delays were a pain. And also the fact that, so in the Zoom rooms coming into OBS, we seem to have, the delays seem to be drifting between people. So we didn't actually have a consistent delay for some reason, which was a bit annoying. So some of them were bang on, like the music was right on with their thing, but some things were drifting. Don't know where that issue was coming from, if it was just Zoom or phones, connection issues, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of potential things there, but yeah, so the audio delays are changing, but we just had to make a call on this is the delay we wanted, and went with that. Yeah, I chatted about the save zone. So yeah, make sure when you're testing for a TikTok event, check on a bunch of different types of phones and see how it's going to look. Because we got the safe zone thing from TikTok, but I think that still was not enough. Using OBS was amazing for the ID and also black and white. Because rather than just doing a direct feed from Zoom Rooms, for example, or Teams or whatever you're using for NDI to SDI, it meant that we had full control of that output going out before it actually hit the switcher, which was amazing. We had a moment about 2 hours before we went live where all the macros were not working, the switcher was not cutting, and we're all pulling our hair going, what the heck is going on? Ended up rebooting the switcher, doing a whole bunch of things. We're like, okay, there's a problem here. What ended up happening was we think it might have potentially been the director or something, but the key 1 was set on the switcher panel. So I think someone may have bumped that, or I may have bumped that when doing some programming, which meant that anytime we hit cut, it was actually just cutting on the preview, not on the program. So literally that was the only thing that was the issue. So my tech Steve was wandered past the switcher and went, hang on a second. I know exactly what that is. So yeah, that was a bit of a, yeah, that was something that could have potentially gone very wrong. But luckily we were able to fix that. I think in OBS you can delay each audio for each Zoom input. You can, in theory, because it wasn't the input coming in. Because the issue was like the audio and video were in sync with each other of their input coming in, but the delays between each person were different. And it seemed to also drift as well. So someone may have been in Sydney with us and had a small delay than someone who was in Perth on the other side of the country on a worse connection as well. So that was more the issue, is that each person was coming in at a different time in time. So we weren't able to get them all perfectly matched up with the song. But it wasn't the end of the world. It was okay. Yes, I think I get what you're saying, but the issue was we just didn't know where each person was in time. So when we were able to, thanks Steve for finding that potentially fatal issue there. Steve Anderson, our tech, amazing guy. Thank you so much. Drive safe, by the way. So even if we were able to find a sync point for everyone, we still would have had the issue of the sync drifting over time if their connection got bad or anything like that. So Yeah, unfortunately, it just ended up being what it was. We tried our best, and some of them were bang on, which looks great, but not all of them were. So yeah, unfortunately, that's just what ended up happening there. So yeah, if you have any more questions, please hit them up. EVS is amazing. It's really expensive and it does its job really well. But we were shooting in 2997 progressive on the Constellation to be in line with Tik Tok spec. And the EVS only did either PSF or 50 or 60p. So there was no way of actually getting 2997p into the actual switcher, EVS itself. So what we ended up having to do was the feeds going into it were, we had a decimator on each input, upscaling it to 5994. And then on the way into the Constellation just figured it out with its built-in scaler. So that was one annoying part about EVS, is that it wasn't able to do that progressive frame rate. But, you know, as always, decimators save the day with that. And we used some audio embedders going into it so that we were able to get those 4 channels of audio. And then, so we had 4 channels of audio going in on the program feed. And then in the EVS, we were able to assign all the audios. So the 4 channels of audio to each of the records, so that when we're playing them out, it was coming up on the same inputs. Pre-production. This whole show was like 90% pre-production. There was a lot of planning going on, and then once we got there on the day, it was just a case of just pushing it in and making it happen. So that was, yeah, we would not have been able to do this without all this being planned. Like, there's no way we could do this just on the day, just see what happens. So another thing we learnt, so you may have seen my previous video talking about the OB trailer we're building. So this is actually for Screencraft, which is really exciting. So hopefully next time we do something like this, it will be in a nice air-conditioned trailer and all built and ready to go. So with a lot of pre-production time, so we can actually do it off-site and just wheel it in. So at that point, we're in the middle of buying a whole bunch of the gear, and a lot of the gear was on its way in. And a lot of the gear was due to arrive the day before the actual bump in. But obviously with postage being the way it is, I was prepping for the gear that was coming, not for the gear that I already had, which was a bit of a mistake from my part. So for example, we had a multi-view 4 coming on, which was going to be what we were going to use for our multi-view. That didn't arrive until after the event, so we ended up having to do a quick change to run everything through the Constellation instead. So yeah, definitely plan ahead. Make sure you plan for the gear you've got, not for the gear you're expecting to get. Or at least if you're doing that, have a backup plan just in case, because especially with the changes like that, that can get very hairy. Crazy Caleb, late to the stream, no problem. Welcome to the stream anyway. You can obviously rewind and have a look later on if you like. Thank you so much, appreciate it. But yeah, look, that's pretty much it. Oh, just another thing. So with that error we had with the next transition key being turned on, if you're doing any macros and stuff, make sure if you do something weird to turn it off again once you're in that macro that you're making, especially like in companion and such. So if you do need to do a key on, for example, make sure you delay it and turn it off again in that same button and not wait for another button to do that, because that, yeah, I don't know where that came from, but that could have very potentially killed the stream. So yeah, look, overall, it was a extremely fun event. You know, a bit stressful. We're trying to figure everything out, and but in the end, it was a very successful event. The client was super happy. And unfortunately, there's going to be more TikToks coming up, I believe, and it's just going to be a very interesting one. We have one potentially coming up in a few months' time. It was going to be similar to the other day. It was going to be happening last year, but COVID obviously moved it forward. But we have a singer on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, on top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, with a bunch of choirs and helicopters and shots everywhere. So that's going to be a very interesting one. We might actually have to shoot that horizontally in 4K and then chop it in the middle. So that's because they wanted a 16:9 and a TikTok version. So that's going to be a very interesting one for that one. How many people do we have involved in total in crew? I actually can't remember. Let's have a look at the. So crew-wise, on the right there, you can see we have our Zoom operator. On the iMac there is our editor. He was doing an edited package live that was happening. EVS operator. The lady standing up next to the multi-view is our DA. And our director was also there as well. Graphics operator, Brendan there. Lighting operator. He was doing the disguise or the E2, can't remember which one, which was running the LED screen. Another person doing the E2. Lighting operator, Steve, my tech, myself, Brad on audio on the D Live. Then we had 3 camera operators, Steadicam assist, and then a bunch of the Red Bull and TikTok crew as well. So it was potentially around 15, 20 people on set for this event, which was a little bit crazy. And then obviously we had our photographers and stuff as well. Look, it was a big event, but it was good fun. And yeah, if you have any other questions as well in terms of just random things, please hit them up. But I'm pretty much done in terms of what I was keen to chat about. Actually, I'll put this into the chat. This was I was always thinking about this when we were doing this video. Say no to vertical video. I don't know if you've seen that video, but it's in there. So what was my role? My role was basically technical director, was what we would call it here in Australia, but I know that's different in other places. Basically the technical lead on the thing. I was also doing CCU on the day, but technical producer and lead on that. So yeah, obviously, yeah, we had a great crew and a lot of very competent crew, and yeah, so thanks to all those who were helping. It made it all very possible. But yeah, that was a good one. But yeah, unless we have any more questions, I think I'm going to go back to bed because my throat is not feeling so great. But look, thank you all so much for joining though. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you learnt a bit, and let me know if you actually are planning on doing some TikTok events, because I'm actually keen to hear what you're planning on doing, because this is not the be all and end all way of doing things. There are better ways of doing things as well. But this ended up working for us. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. There's probably more coming up, but we will see how that goes. So yeah, thank you so much for coming, everyone. Patrick, thank you so much. And look, everyone, you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers. And don't forget to subscribe as well, because that would help out a lot. Thanks so much. Cheers.